A sudden Canadian flight ban has put 280,000 American jobs at risk, an immediate crisis, not a distant threat. From airline pilots in Texas to hotel staff in Florida and factory workers in Michigan, livelihoods are threatened as one of the world's busiest air corridors shuts down. The US-Canada relationship, long a pillar of economic stability, is now under severe strain. The halt to air travel severs a critical artery, impacting not just airlines, but tourism, hospitality, and manufacturing. Widespread layoffs and business closures loom, with consumer confidence shaken at a precarious time. This isn't just about numbers, it's about families, communities, and industries bracing for impact. As cargo hubs fall silent and resort towns face empty seasons, the effects are growing by the day. This is a shared North American crisis, demanding urgent fact-based action. To truly grasp the fallout from this historic decision, we need to look beyond the headlines and understand the deeper reasons behind Canada's unprecedented move. Canada's government didn't act lightly. The decision to halt all US flights was the result of mounting concerns and careful deliberation at the highest levels. On September 30, 2025, citing urgent national security and public health risks, Canada suspended every single flight to and from the United States. This drastic action followed a series of repeated security breaches at American airports, incidents that raised alarm bells in Ottawa and across the country. Canadian officials say they repeatedly reached out to their American counterparts, seeking joint security reviews and concrete assurances. But after weeks of discussions, they were left unsatisfied and increasingly frustrated by what they saw as vague or insufficient US responses. The final straw came when a near-miss incident at a major US airport, one that could have ended in disaster, was not immediately disclosed to Canadian authorities. This lack of transparency shattered any remaining trust and triggered the sweeping ban. Ottawa now frames this as a necessary, though temporary, measure. Officials insist the ban will only be lifted when the US can demonstrate real, verifiable improvements in airport security and information sharing. The responsibility and the pressure now falls squarely on US authorities to resolve the impasse, restore trust, and address the security gaps that led to this crisis. American officials have called the ban an overreaction, but the diplomatic standoff is already having real, measurable economic consequences. Trade, tourism, and business travel between the two countries have ground to a halt, sending shockwaves through both economies. For thousands of workers in the aviation industry, the technical details of security protocols may seem distant, but the impact is immediate and personal. Their livelihoods are now at stake, caught in the crossfire of an international dispute. The ban stands as a stark verdict on US aviation safety, with devastating results for American jobs, airlines, and the broader travel industry. Layoffs and furloughs are mounting as planes sit idle and runways remain empty. Until these deep security concerns are fully addressed, the skies between Canada and the US, and the economic pressure on both nations, will remain firmly closed, with no clear end in sight. The economic shock was immediate and far-reaching, sending ripples through the entire aviation industry and beyond. Almost overnight, the familiar hum of busy terminals and bustling runways was replaced by an eerie silence, as airports across the country stood nearly empty. Within just a week of the travel ban, an estimated 45,000 airline and airport jobs, ranging from pilots and flight attendants to ground crews and maintenance staff, were suddenly at risk. These jobs were directly tied to the 2,000 daily flights that once connected the US and Canada, flights that had become a lifeline for both countries' economies. Major carriers responded by slashing staff and announcing sweeping layoffs, as the revenue from lucrative Canadian routes vanished almost instantly. Employees who had spent years building their careers in aviation now faced an uncertain future. In 2024, US-Canada air travel generated a staggering $35 billion in revenue. The sudden halt of this cross-border traffic left a gaping hole in the industry's finances, with ripple effects spreading quickly. Each week, the US economy now loses $1.2 billion in both direct and indirect revenue. This includes not just ticket sales, but also spending on hotels, transportation, and local businesses that depend on airport traffic. The hardest hit are the northern border states, where cross-border travel is a daily necessity, and major airline hubs like Chicago, Denver, and Newark, which have seen passenger numbers plummet. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represent real families suddenly facing lost income, mounting bills, and careers put indefinitely on hold. The stress and uncertainty are palpable in communities that rely on aviation. The ripple effect extends even further, impacting airport catering companies, cleaning crews, and retail businesses, many of them small and locally owned, that depend on steady passenger traffic to survive. For these businesses, their primary source of revenue has disappeared almost overnight, leaving owners and employees scrambling to adapt or facing closure. Early data only hints at the scale of secondary job losses, but airport authorities warn that the numbers will almost certainly climb in the coming weeks and months as the full impact becomes clear. The collapse in flight volume is just the beginning of a much larger economic crisis for the aviation sector and the communities that depend on it. The U.S. airline industry, once a symbol of global connectivity and economic strength, is now reeling from an unprecedented crisis. Airports that used to buzz with activity now echo with silence, and the ripple effects are being felt across the entire sector. For major carriers like United, Delta, and American, Canadian routes have always been a crucial source of revenue. These flights, connecting cities across the border, were a lifeline for both business and leisure travelers. Now, with these routes abruptly suspended, a vital artery of income has been severed overnight. Planes that once shuttled passengers to Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal now sit idle on the tarmac, each grounded aircraft representing millions in lost revenue and mounting operational costs. Before the ban, Canadian routes accounted for 8–10% of international revenue for the top U.S. carriers, a significant share that helped stabilize their bottom lines, especially during seasonal travel peaks. Now, analysts warn that if the ban continues through the end of the year, the top 3 airlines could collectively lose as much as $4 billion. This staggering figure doesn't just reflect ticket sales, but also lost partnerships, code shares, and diminished brand loyalty. The financial shockwaves have hit Wall Street, with airline stocks plummeting and investors bracing for more turbulence. To stem the bleeding, airlines are being forced into immediate payroll cuts, layoffs, and hiring freezes, putting thousands of jobs at risk. The ban's impact extends beyond passengers. Air cargo, critical for moving pharmaceuticals, auto parts, and fresh seafood between the US and Canada, has been crippled. These goods now face costly, slow alternatives, disrupting industries on both sides of the border. Over 60% of US-Canada air freight by value was carried in the bellies of passenger planes. With those flights grounded, vital supply chains have been abruptly severed, leaving businesses scrambling for solutions. Cargo backlogs are piling up in warehouses, and delayed shipments threaten just-in-time manufacturing, risking production halts and lost contracts for countless companies. The human toll is mounting. Up to 8,000 pilots and thousands more flight attendants now face furloughs or steep pay cuts, their livelihoods hanging in the balance as uncertainty drags on. The industry, which was only just beginning to recover from the devastating effects of the pandemic, now finds itself plunged into a fresh crisis, one driven not by a virus, but by diplomatic deadlock. Grounded planes have become a stark symbol of a workforce sidelined by forces beyond their control, as thousands of skilled workers search for answers and new opportunities. For everyone in the industry, the wait for resolution is agonizing, with each passing day deepening the uncertainty and the sense of loss. The ban's impact ripples through tourism and hospitality. Canadians are the largest group of international visitors to the U.S., spending $15 billion annually, now cut off. Sunbelt states like Florida and Arizona, reliant on Canadian snowbirds, face a devastating winter. Hotel bookings are canceled, rental properties sit empty, and restaurants brace for a sharp drop in customers. In Florida alone, over 100,000 jobs depend on Canadian visitors during peak season. The absence of Canadian tourists could cost 50,000 food service jobs nationwide if the ban persists. The tap of economic vitality has been turned off, leaving the tourism sector parched. The ban's disruption of goods movement reveals a deeper threat, especially to manufacturing and agriculture. US-Canada supply chains are tightly integrated. Air freight is vital for high-value, time-sensitive goods. The ban fractures this link, creating chaos for exporters and their workers. Automakers in the Midwest rely on just-in-time parts flown from Canada. Delays now threaten assembly lines and jobs. The Center for Automotive Research warns of possible plant shutdowns and thousands of jobs at risk. Agriculture suffers too. Perishable goods like berries and lobster can't reach Canadian markets, risking total loss. Logistics companies, truckers, and warehouse workers all face reduced business. For every airline job lost, 3 more are threatened in the supply chain. The ban isn't just grounding people, it's choking the network that supports millions of jobs. The economic fallout is cascading through every link. The pain isn't evenly spread, it's a patchwork of crisis. Northern border states face a dual blow: lost air travel and disrupted cross-border economies. Sunbelt states brace for a tourism collapse as snowbirds vanish. California's tourism, agriculture, and tech sectors all feel the strain. Major hubs like Chicago and Denver lose connecting traffic, slashing flights and jobs. Even states with little direct travel to Canada are hit by supply chain shocks. The ban proves that in a globalized economy, a single border closure can trigger nationwide consequences. The damage goes beyond job losses. It's stalling business, education, and cultural exchange. U.S. companies with cross-border operations face stalled deals and delayed projects, hurting growth and innovation. Small businesses with Canadian expansion plans are now in limbo. Universities lose Canadian students, a key revenue source as travel is suspended. Cancelled conferences and cultural events mean lost income for venues and organizers. Most damaging is the erosion of confidence. The US-Canada border, once a model of stability, now feels uncertain. This new risk may deter future investment and hiring. The uncertainty acts as a tax on economic activity, slowing recovery. The true cost of lost confidence will linger long after flights resume. The collateral damage is deep and widespread. The facts are clear. A diplomatic and security dispute has put 280,000 American jobs in jeopardy. The crisis has spread from airlines to hotels, factories, and farms, fracturing supply chains and crippling tourism. Each day the ban continues, the damage deepens. The core issue is trust in airport security, a problem that demands urgent, transparent action. Only high-level engagement between US and Canadian officials can restore confidence and reopen the skies. The priority: get Americans back to work and restore this vital economic artery. Long-term, we must strengthen cross-border cooperation to prevent future crises. The question now: what immediate steps will protect American workers and safeguard our most critical economic partnership?